Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here on stage with you today.
Likewise, Gabrielle. Thank you, Rachel. I was going to say that sounds like either a chat GPT intro or my mom wrote it.
Right. So I'm Gabrielle Heyman. I run brand partnerships for Zynga. We're one of the largest mobile game studios with 200 million global players. And we got a little brief intro about your illustrious background, but why don't you tell us about your many years in CPG, the places you've worked, and what you're focusing on at Church and Dwight?
Thank you, Gabrielle. Thanks for having me here. Thanks again, Rachel. So I don't know about illustrious or not. I'm an outsider to the marketing and advertising world. I started my first job at Procter& Gamble, a big influential marketing and brand company, but I started in technology. And I really liked the marketing department. But I did not have permission to move over. So I just moved jobs to where I did get a marketing job, and that's how I started with marketing. I've been around several CPGs, like Rachel was saying, so I played a bit of a CPG bingo. Today at Church and Dwight, which sounds like a law firm, but it's not. It's a consumer product goods company with brands like Arm & Hammer, Hero, Mighty Patch. The lady in pink is the CEO of Hero, one of the biggest brands and awesome brands we acquired recently, and other brands like Trojan, Waterpik, Vitafusions, and a ton of other awesome brands. I lead all things digital, e-com, media, measurement, and analytics, and I love doing that.
That's excellent. And I'm such a fangirl of so many of your products because I use Arm & Hammer toothpaste. And my teeth are very white. I get compliments all the time. I'm extremely dedicated to that brand and Mighty Patch, which I get like horrible cystic acne. I know it's really not very sexy, but I'm telling you, this Mighty Patch really works. It drains those suckers. So you've over 18 different categories that you guys represent, such a variety. You mentioned some right now. And since we're here at the Festival of Creativity, of course, we want to showcase some of your amazing creativity. So, brand innovators, I'm going to ask you to roll tape, even though there's no tape anymore, of our first spot, Pop Me.
I see you looking at me. Ooh, you're zit.
No, don't do it.
You can't ignore me. But you know what you can do? Pop me! Come on! Pop me! It's a perfect solution and you would definitely not regret it. Pop me! Pop me! Pop me! Just do it! Pop me! Oh, no!
Don't pop it, patch it. Mighty Patch Pimple Patches reveal clear-looking skin overnight. Pimple, meet your Mighty Patch.
I think everyone relates to that, this desire to pop, you just want it off of your face. So tell us about that spot, the results. I mean, it's such an endearing spot.
Funny, I say to the spot when the CEO is sitting right there in the audience, so do keep me honest. But just for context, Hero Mighty Patch was a brand we acquired about 8-9 months back. It's the #1 Gen Z loved brand in several categories, not just acne. It's the #1 acne patch brand in the country in US right now and expanding fast outside the US as well. So Hero Mighty Patch grew up on social and Amazon, direct-to-consumer, Ulta and Target for the most part. And this was our very first national quote-unquote awareness building media. And we just wanted to speak to the audience and give the feedback back to the consumer who told us a pimple is nothing to be ashamed of, afraid of. So just own it. And we just personalized the pimple in this and had several creative like that. And we had hundreds of millions of views on TikTok. So social was our superpower already. And this campaign gave us the ability to reach to a much broader audience. And the brand is doing amazing. We just can't make enough.
Yeah, I'm so jealous that Gen Z got this brand at the get-go, and I had to wait until middle age to have the benefit of it. So one of the big topics, of course, here at Cannes is AI, generative AI. So I think that everyone would love to know, how is it impacting your business, your creative practices? Like, how are you using this tool?
And I'm sure AI should not be called any drinking game right now at Cannes or anywhere else. I would say AI is hyped up right now, which is valid and makes sense. It's almost like it's bringing the vertical search into horizontal search in a single paragraph. But our company has been using AI before, just like several of our other peer groups have. For example, we have been using review analytics for our brands and competitors to gather insights using AI to define what new product innovation we should be doing or how do we optimize our product. In the newer Gen, Chat GPT or DAL-E or Midjourney kind of applications, we have started using content that used to take a week or 10 days to build and illustrators to do storyboarding. It takes a couple hours. Of course, the human intervention and creativity doesn't go away, but we have live campaigns for some of our brands like Nair, which is a great Gen Z skin hair removal brand, and we have used some creative for that. So it's just a beginning of a lot of test and learns in content, which seems to be the quote-unquote low-hanging fruit, and our agency partners have really leaned in and helped us explore more of that.
How long has it been implemented? Is it like in just this recent past?
The content and creative is recent in the last 3 to 6 months, but the AI application, say for review analytics, has been there for a couple of years now.
It's definitely an interesting emerging field and a lot of controversy, part of the writer's strike and the actor's strike that might be imminent. All right, so we're gonna move on to one of my favorite product suites, Arm & Hammer. So Arm & Hammer is a suite of baking soda-based products, right? But it's like, I was calling it the Swiss Army knife brand because you make there's so many product extensions with it. I've obviously already spoken about my love of the toothpaste. So we're gonna run our second spot now that covers exactly what I said, the Swiss Army knife-ness of this brand.
Price pinch, give it the hammer. Workload overload, give it the hammer. Stuck in a funk, give it the hammer. Hard times, no time. When times get tough, the tough, give it the hammer. Arm & Hammer, more power to you.
So it's so interesting because when we were speaking before, I actually didn't realize it was a value brand because I'm so committed to the brand and I find that the results are so effective that to me it seemed like a premium brand. So this was new to me. I don't know, but tell us what's the choice to do a multi-brand spot like that?
No, I will say you identified right. Church & Dwight is a house of brands, not a branded house. So Arm & Hammer and the portfolio around baking soda, cat litter, laundry detergent are all the value segment of our products. At the same time, we have premium products like Hero, TheraBreath, White Fusion, and so many others. So this spot was built at the beginning of this year when we had a lot of conversation and insight feeling that the consumer was feeling stressed for monies. And we were in quote-unquote recessionary times. And we wanted to restore the power back in the hand of the consumer, knowing that our brands are effective and they are meaningful to the purpose they solve. And the consumer can still find it affordable despite all the recessionary times we are in. So this was built as a portfolio campaign. We got about 1 billion PR views in under 48 hours. So it had great impact. And we have a very loyal following for all of Arm & Hammer portfolio.
So are you, because of this economic climate, are you gaining share? You say you have these loyal customers, but are you getting incremental share with a switch over given the economic climate?
Sure. I mean, like I said, our portfolio is value and premium. So some of our value brands are definitely winning. I would not say it is just the economic climate. It is also all the hard work that the brands have been putting in to speak to the consumers, and we have a loyal following. Most of our brands have always had either number 1 or number 2 market share, right? So this is not quote-unquote new, but ever since the last recession, say back in 2010, our value brands do specifically well, and we are seeing that strength in most of our portfolio.
And then can you maintain that share when the economy bounces back?
That is the aspiration, because
That's
I'm
the
sure
goal.
the economy did bounce back after 2010, and we have steadily grown share, so we aspire to do that. So if we are not like a recession, I would say we are not a recession-proof brand, but we do thrive in recessionary environments as well, as we do in regular climates.
So interesting. So one of the other really emerging things in the media landscape are retail media networks. and obviously they're growing extremely quickly. And I wanted to speak about the promise and the pitfalls of retail media network. I know when we were prepping for this, we had a pretty frank conversation around it. So I'm sure everyone here also wants to know your thoughts.
I mean, this is a second drinking game after AI. I would say, right, from a retailer vantage point, selling bananas in soap and lotion is 4% or less margin. But selling media is 94% or more margin. So it totally makes sense from a retailer standpoint. At the same point, from a brand perspective, we want to be where the eyeballs are. So if the eyeballs are at the retail media network or quote unquote upper funnel, we just want to be there to connect with the consumer. The promise is there because there are certain retail media networks which are more evolved in not just having the eyeballs, but closing the measurement loop and providing the clear metrics on incremental ROAS, new to brand, and so on. At the same time, there's a ton of also me, right? I also want more than 4% margin, so let me, the daily.com should also do a retail media network, and that's not valid. I think the responsibility is in the brand side to understand that we become quote unquote the buyer, just like the merchant buyer is when we sell product to the retailer. We become the buyer when we buy retail media and negotiate with that vantage point. And also be aware that we are putting trade, we are putting slotting fee, we are putting shopper marketing, and retail media is another lever. So we can't have those slivers each be negotiated separately. We want to speak to the entire pie together and see what's the brand benefit in doing that. So I think there's a pitfall when some salespeople are strong-armed into buying retail media without clearly understanding what's the value for the brand there. At the same time, the promise is it brings the internal organization. Silos get shattered more often because the salespeople, the marketing folks, the media folks have to go together to see what's the incrementality and is it worth us for us as a brand overall, which never happened before, right? Because the salesperson would be very discreet from a media conversation, which is happening now. But I think I saw e-marketers speak to retail media networks will be outgrowing the total spend on TV by 2028. I want to predict it'll happen much sooner at the pace it's going right now.
Interesting. And is it going to happen sooner based on real results or the fact that brands have to buy given their, important relationship with the retailers?
I want to say it should be on real results, otherwise it will lose momentum. I don't want to quote things like metaverse or NFT or Web3, but I saw a meme yesterday where there's a ton of traffic on the highway and all the cars that were Web3 were now becoming Gen AI cars. So I hope it's not the case for retail media network or not, because it'll naturally fizzle out, right? We cannot be strong-armed into doing it if it doesn't hold its merit. So some will thrive, disproportionately be stronger, and the tail will just fizzle away.
So interesting, too, because so many colleagues that I've worked with in the past from Yahoo, for example, back in Yahoo's heyday, have now moved over to Walmart Connect. So there are the best and brightest, I think, trying to make sure that retail media networks work. So, okay, now e-commerce, we talked about, e-commerce makes up 18% of your revenue right now. And what I thought was so smart, the way you put it when we were prepping, was the shift to e-commerce. You can't take away convenience. So obviously during the pandemic, it was like extremely accelerated the adoption of it, and it's only going to grow more. So I'm wondering about the unique ways that you market in an e-commerce environment versus a retail, outcome, and maybe where the two overlap.
I used to joke with my 2 jobs past CEO in the middle of the pandemic, Thibault, the CEO of J&J, that, hey, Thibault, e-commerce went from page 25, bullet 6 on your presentations to page 1, bullet 1. The funny news is, even in a post-COVID world, it stays on page 1, if not bullet 1, right? And that is, I think, speaking to where the consumer is taking us, right? The momentum. We are not going to be brands that create a channel for the consumer. The channel is created. It's our job just to be present and be there. So when you say 18%, I don't want to say the goal is to be 20% or 30% or 50%. If 50% of all vitamins are sold on e-commerce and we are not, it's our job to be there and be present for the consumer. So that's the philosophy. At the same time, when you look at things like retailer earning reports, this year, between 50 to 70% of all of Walmart and Target growth, the biggest US retailers' growth, incremental revenue is coming from e-com. So that just speaks to where the consumer is buying and how it's happening, not just in the quote-unquote pure play that is the Amazon channel, but also in omni-channel, and our brand is there, to be there. Now, some of the fundamentals can be operating on retail media networks that we spoke about, but even before that, is your content and copy and digital shelf right so that the consumer is able to engage in a very thumb-stopping way and be able to buy that. The other area we are realizing is e-commerce is just the tip of the iceberg. The consumer can be inspired and get knowledge about our product on the e-com channels, but they may consummate the sale in brick and mortar environment, right? They might read reviews online and go buy the product in store in Target. And that's the full funnel loop that we are trying to close, because we are in the era of digitally influenced sales, which will be way above and beyond the 18%. I know Forrester put a study out to say 70% of all retail sales in the next 3 years will be digitally influenced. Now, only a part of that 70% is going to be e-commerce. The rest is all the sales that got inspired or influenced or impacted because of being digitally present, and that's what we want to be ready for.
And you're just meeting the consumer where they are, no matter where they are. And I'm sure that many people bounce back and forth depending on their busy lifestyle. So next up is one of my favorite topics, media mix modeling, and how you are using planning tools to plan your media expenditures. And the reason why it's such a passion point for me is because I represent gaming, which of course there's 3.2 billion global gamers. But as a media channel, it's only seeing 5% of allocation of budget. And just like what you were saying with the retail media networks and the margin on ads, it's the same in gaming. So for in-app purchases, we have Google and Apple taking 30%, but the margins are much better for game publishers and ads. So we're really leaning into ads. And also that's where consumers are headed. So it's not seen as a media channel in these planning tools. And one of my purposes in life is to change that, my professional life. So I'm just wondering how you think about traditional planning tools, where they're making the correct suggestion to your teams and where they're just falling behind.
I think this is the journey of evolution of defining what MMM means in the current world. For the longest time, TV and other media channels have been used to define the attribution and measurement. As the media channels change, like you said, it became retail media channel, it became social recently, and now gaming is the next era. Brands, and our brands included, are learning how to refine the input criteria so that the output criteria is more meaningful. In the most recent areas, I've been speaking to a lot of industry counterparts where they say X million dollars or X% of spend on retail media, Amazon specifically, drives a Y halo in brick and mortar. Now that's net new data for us, and that's then defining and impacting what our profitability for the digital channel is. Because if we don't attribute it right, the digital channels specifically can be wrongly assumed to be margin decorative when they are not, because you are not considering the halo impact. I think the same thing can happen with gaming. It's just that it is super nascent and new knowledge for several brands. And I think it's a function of follow the money. The more monies we spend in newer channels that are not known to us, we will be forced to make sure that the attribution and measurement is done right. And I believe a lot of the industry is on that path.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. All right, so we're going to move on to another one of your brands, TheraBreath. Okay, so for those who might not know, TheraBreath is a mouthwash for bad breath. And when I was looking at your commercial spots, because there were several different spots we looked at to share here, I was noticing and thinking, because it's for bad breath, during the pandemic when everyone was home or wearing a mask, I'm wondering how the sales trajectory went. Did it dip during that moment? Because if no one's around you, who cares about your breath? And then has it really rebounded? Now, of course, I don't know. We haven't really discussed this yet, but has it rebounded now that we're all out together?
So, shameless plug for TheraBreath. Like Hero Mighty Patch, it's also the top 5 Gen Z loved brands in the US right now, amongst many other categories, not just the mouthwash category. And it is growing gangbusters, for lack of a better word. We bought the brand in November 2021, and it's under 2 years. It used to be #1 alcohol-free mouthwash. Now it is #1 mouthwash, period, in many retailers. And we are giving tough competition to the blue bottle, for those who know it. So super proud of the TheraBreath team, the innovation there. It's a premium product. Again, like I was mentioning, it is not a value product, it's a premium product. And we are learning the Gen Z and other demographics are willing to open up their wallet if the product speaks to them and they find it engaging and highly effective. So right now, the TheraBreath business is doing amazing.
Wow, okay, that's a new one to me. I'll have to try it. So DTC, I know, there's always these like things that everyone talks about. And several years ago, I remember at the IAB annual leadership meeting, like DTC was like the talk of it. And CPGs, some CPGs sort of looking at this category and transitioning to it where it makes sense. And so which of your brands have adapted to DTC channels? I know we were talking about Waterpik, which is another brand that I grew up with. My mom is very addicted and like loves her Waterpik. All the dentists that I've ever been to recommend it. But tell us about DTC.
I love your family's dental hygiene story. Thanks for all the loyalty on Waterpik and Arm & Hammer. So direct-to-consumer is a channel that several CPGs, in my career have experimented. We used to have Neutrogena.com at J&J. Colgate has a ton of brands. What we are learning is direct-to-consumer can be a brilliant test-and-learn channel to see how your products can be launched and perceived before you go big bang in distribution. At the same time, you don't want to mean everything to everyone on direct-to-consumer. You want to make sure that your assortment and your product and the offerings are unique, because D2C is an expensive channel to experiment with. So internally, we are also in that phase where we want to educate that direct-to-consumer metrics are going to be different than your typical retailer metrics, because sales and profitability may not be your #1 priority there in direct-to-consumer. Your priority might be gathering first-party data, experimenting, being there for the loyalist, creating a good subscribe and save reason. So only some of our brands meet that criteria. Hero Mighty Patch does that, TheraBreath does that. Some of our subscription business like Viviscal and Topic, which are great hair care brands, they do brilliant on direct-to-consumer because it's a 3-month, 6-month subscription and ongoing. Brands like Waterpik, which are a high price point, do really well. We have tons of examples where internally, even on events like Prime Day and other tentpole events, our D2C sales on Waterpik really shoot up, because the consumer is sometimes looking for absolute authenticity and buy straight from the manufacturer when they are buying a $100, $200 product. So it's super interesting to see how these dynamics play out. I would not say D2C is not needed in the current world because it is margin decorative and things like that. I would say find the purpose DTC solves for you beyond sales and profit, and then leverage those learnings not just for the channel but across all distributors. And some brands really meet that criteria. That being said, D2C is kind of like having a Facebook page. So there'll be tons of curious ABMs who'll just open a D2C site because it's an easy check mark and super low entry barrier. So I would just say we hesitate from doing that. Don't do it because it's easy, do it because it's meaningful, and you're gonna do something about the data and scale it.
I'm also it occurred to me as you were speaking that, like on Amazon, the subscribe and save button, which is for many different products, right? Like including laundry detergent. Do you think that is almost an indication of like the percent of users who, do subscribe and save could be converted to a direct type of sale?
That's a fair point. They could be converted. Tons of categories of ours do very good in subscribe and save, specifically litter. Like people don't want to pick up cat litter, 40 pound of cat litter, and get it to their door. If a Chewy and Amazon can do that, I think that's where the unit economics come to play. What is the value of doing it in direct to consumer versus just Amazon? And we are also conscious that the consumer doesn't want to have 5 subscriptions, one for their clothes, one for toothpaste, one for litter, and others, when they can go to a single retailer and pick 5, subscribe, and save, which is where the unique value proposition comes in. If a Viviscal and Topic and Hero is giving them something super unique that retailer platforms do not, then we have a right to win them for subscriptions.
So interesting. So I think that we have some time for audience questions. Does anyone, who's our MC? They took your mic. Where's the mic? It's coming, it's coming. Okay, there's one right behind you.
Hi, I'm Brian Chapp with Tech Recipes. This isn't really specific to media, but a lot of your competitors are starting to explore packaging innovation with concentrated items in order to speed up that supply chain and really minimize the shipping costs. I was wondering what your take on that is, if that is a viable solution in order to generate more margin or more revenue.
That's a good question, and I think not just for margin and revenue, but also from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah.
We work in the sustainability is a key priority for us. Way before it became woke and cool, our company has been doing ERG and sustainability initiatives back from the 1990s and early 1950s, actually. So we have products like laundry detergent, and every year we do initiatives called compaction, where the amount of liquid is in the jar that comes down, but the concentration is still valuable and good enough for the consumer to get a clean experience while having a product that is not in a big jar and essentially shipping liquid across the country, which is not good for profitability. So that's one example. There's a ton of other innovation happening, both from a sustainability reason and for packaging for an e-commerce digital perspective, where we are trying to do bundles to make sure that unit economics makes sense when we are shipping 1 tube of toothpaste versus 3 together, not trying to mimic a Costco behavior, but trying to make it right for the consumer shopping on the online channel.
Great, thank you.
We have another question over here.
Hi, Leonardo. Hi, thank you very much. I'm curious to know regarding, I don't know, it's a bit of a very common topic, but generative AI. When you mentioned before how that affected your creative process, I'm curious to know, since you guys produce a lot of commercials with a whole different brands, and I guess you have like a portfolio of agencies or that you work with, how do you think that is going to affect your relationship with them? So what are your expectations now from your creative partners in terms of, you expect something quicker, cheaper, better? And I'm curious to know how that relationship will be affected like yours.
That's a great question. I don't want to say I have an answer to all the quicker, cheaper, better components. I think in that journey, we are, right now, we're in the use case of quicker for now, because we have seen the impact of doing content in creative in a faster way, using generative AI and different tools. The good news is the agencies are the ones bringing these ideas to us and partnering with us to make it effective. Yesterday, I was hearing one of the panels. I think the NVIDIA CEO spoke to Mark Reed of WPP saying 98% of all creative is wasted. So there's a ton of creative that's already happening on the agency side that's not utilized and wasted. And I think that becomes the input criteria for all this Gen AI to reuse that creative that is not being used and apply it in a better way without as much human intervention. So I think the quick part will happen super fast. It's already happening. It's only logical that it will become better and cheaper over time. I won't say that's an expectation currently, because we are still in that nascency of learning what it means for us, at least from a speed perspective.
Okay, maybe I'm not really sure how much time we have left, everybody. Is it 5 more minutes? All right, ask a long question, Marianne.
You talked about measurement and new channels and the halo effect. I would love you to elaborate more, especially in this new privacy compliant measurement where we want to measure things, but we still want to be privacy compliant, and how that halo effect, what really is that halo effect? Can you kind of elaborate on that?
I'll give you the example from a public case study by Bai Brands. BAI is that vitamin water kind of colored drink that you see. So I know their founder pretty well, Denny, and he educated me a couple of years back. And it's a public case study on Analytic Partners, which is a great agency that does MMM and Halo measurement. They said they would spend X amount of dollars on Amazon for retail media and advertising for Bai Brands, which is a new indie brand. And they saw store sales going up in CVS, where they did not do any sort of advertising or promotion. So that was one example, and go up to the tune of 30 to 50%, right? We at Church and Dwight are doing similar experiments on MMM and seeing the attribution of our spend in one channel, creating a ripple effect of spend in brick and mortar. Like Gabrielle was saying, gaming and other media channels are also gaining momentum, not something that's included in the MMM model already, but it's only a matter of time of where you spend the monies and where you see the impact. Again, I call it the halo and the hangover effect, because I'm sure there is duality of the money spent in brick and mortar, and you see the impact online as well.
Speaking along those lines, what do you think about marketing in a very data-centric universe? Because it seems to me I'm very fascinated by, I mean, I grew up in, my first career was at the dawn of digital, the 468 by 60 banner, all of the data that we've captured, all of the retargeting, all of the information that Google, Facebook, et cetera. And now, not only with legal compliance, but also platform changes, like Apple has implemented the demise of the cookie, and contextual targeting. It's like what is old, what we did, back in the day is now new again. Well, what do you think about that in general? And have you guys started experimenting with, like, how are you planning ahead of the curve for this ultimate eventuality?
I would say that is not an area we have invested a ton of monies, honestly. First-party data and the cookie demise has been a conversation going on. We are not the company that is touting X billion, scenarios that we have. I personally believe a lot of brands that are gathering data is almost like gathering it like squirrels gathering acorn. The only difference is squirrels actually know that acorn is food and brands do not, how to apply that. So I would not say we pursue data just for the pursuit of data, because everybody's doing it, but how do we use it and apply it toward marketing vehicles to bring our cost per click down? And is the data input valid and kosher enough, right? You don't want to pick up a sweepstakes data and then say, this is the sweepstakes data and let's apply our brand marketing monies to optimize for that sweepstake information. So I think it is an evolving area. Definitely, given the demise of the cookie, I was just speaking to Google half an hour back. They said, next year when we are talking to you, this will surely be there. And I've been having this conversation for the last 2-3 years. I think we are about to go there. But I think we want to work not from a place of paranoia, but from a place of practical application of the use case of how it makes media more efficient.
Absolutely, and we're doing a lot of experimentation right now with first-party, third-party, contextual, and I think it's surprising that sometimes it is the contextual that's performing better. And I find a lot of first-party data to be an echo chamber. It's like you're speaking to this certain audience but there are many consumers of yours that are not within that. Do we have any more questions from the audience? No? Okay, well, I think we're at time. Oh, one more. We'll just squeeze one more and then we'll be at time. There's a mic coming to you.
Hey, thanks. For both of you, I'm wondering if you could say what's one kind of audience you really want to grow among for new customer acquisition? Like, is it a Gen Z multicultural? Or, I know you have a lot of products, of course, but love to hear both from the gaming and entertainment side and from the FMCG side.
I mean, for us, everyone is a gamer. So literally from, Gen Alpha to Boomers. So we have different games for different audiences, and we have a very healthy user acquisition budget to make sure we're continuously getting more gamers. And actually, mobile gaming is the fastest growing segment within gaming versus console or PC, and also the largest share. So, but you know what the truth is? There's a lot of games that are cross-dimensional. So,
we do want to catch the audience young, so Gen Alpha, including my own kids who are 14 and starting on their journey of mouthwash and pimple and all that good stuff. At the same time, I would say it varies by brands. Some of our brands like Trojan index really well on the younger generation, but not as much on the older population of boomers and such, right? So there is opportunity depending on the brand where you're indexing, but at a very macro level, you want to catch them young and hold them for their lifetime value. That's just logical, but it varies by some brands who already over-index very well in the Gen Z, TheraBreath and Mighty Patch. They might want to do more on the other side of the spectrum.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me on stage today. You are lovely, and I've
Gabrielle.
learned so much
Back
from
at
you.
you.
Thank you.